Hey y'all, this week was Fantasy Suite week for The Bachelor. There are three women remaining, so let's find out how the Fantasy Suites went. If everyone accepted the Fantasy Suite offer, did anybody kiss and tell? We have one more week to go for this season to be donezo, so I got all the tea. About to share it with you. Stick around. Okay, so this week the Bachelor crew is in Dominican Republic, and I believe Grant, this is where he used to play basketball professionally, so he was happy to be back. He also later mentioned his grandma was from there, who recently passed, so rest in peace to her. But yeah, this week started off with Juliana meeting with Daisy. Daisy is from Joey's season. Shout out to Daisy because I see she's been doing her big one. She's been doing the Dollop of Daisy commercial. I think that's sour cream. Yes, but she's been very visible. She was a fan favorite during her season, so I was glad to see her back on the screen. But Daisy did let Juliana know this week she needs to either decide to open up more or just completely close things off, because Juliana says she does feel like kind of scared and worried about, opening up more based on how her past relationship went. And so she does talk to Grant about that a little deeper. For Grant and Juliana's date, they rode four wheelers, and she just opened up to him and let him know that in her past relationship, she got cheated on a lot. So that's why she's scared or hesitant to open up. Grant did say he wants her to feel comfortable with him and open up to her more. So I feel she did a good job kind of, expressing her feelings and her concerns. And said he wanted to be there to support her through that. So that's nice. I feel like right now we're in the home stretch. So the connection he has with at least two of these women, I feel like is pretty secure. So Juliana did say she still feels a little broken about her past relationships and worried, or her past relationship, and worried that she wouldn't be able to be loved fully. Um, and they just communicated about that, and he kind of was there to support her and just let him know that he sees her. He did ask her if she wanted to stay with him in the fantasy suite. She accepted the offer, and I'm sure they talked even more in there and did whatever else people do in the fantasy suite, okay? And I don't know what that is because I've never been in one. But yeah, he did let her know she's a good sleeper. She said the whole experience was a 12 out of 10, would recommend. So, I mean, I think that they're a good connection. Are they ready for marriage? I don't know. I feel like we're going to see. She did say that every time she spends time with him, her feelings are reaffirmed, so that is a good sign. Next up was the meeting with Zoe, and Zoe met with Rachel, also from Joey's season. Zoe is still concerned that she hasn't spent a lot of time with Grant. She's the only one out of the three that never got a one-on-one. So she just says that she still has a lot of questions for him. Rachel suggested that she just lays all her questions out on the table. She says if she does that, she's not concerned about her at all. The only problem is, though, when it was time for Zoe and Grant's date, they did silent yoga. So all the questions she had to make sure they have the same visions and goals in life when it comes to family and having kids and everything like that, she wasn't able to ask those questions because, yeah, they did silent yoga where they could not talk throughout the process. So she did feel like the silent yoga was a little awkward at first, but eventually their chemistry was able to connect and they just had a good vibe just based on staring at each other, touching each other, gentle touches, of course. And Zoe, though, she did say she still has questions for him, so she made sure to ask those questions at dinner. Zoe says she still doesn't really know that much about Grant, so, With next week being the finale, she is kind of just at a standstill. I would label it like, how do you accept a proposal and you don't really know the person? So, understandably so. I mean, there's only so much you could learn in this short span, but I do feel like they could have gotten closer, especially with, her kind of being in his face from the beginning. So Grant noticed that they do have a lot of similarities. She grew up adopted. He grew up feeling separate from his family, or like a lone wolf, as he described it. And so he does see a lot of similarities. And he said he notices things in her that are really important to him. He offers Zoe the fantasy suite. She accepts. After the fantasy suite, or the next morning, he did say he feels they connected on a deeper level. He can see himself proposing to her, and ultimately, they both want to build a family dynamic or bond that neither one of them had while they were growing up. Last but not least is Latia. She met with Katie from Zach's season. And Latia, as she expressed last week, she's concerned about his connection with the other women, and she really doesn't want to know how things are or how things went with the fantasy suite with the other ladies. So she spoke with Katie about that. Katie said on her season, Zach let her know that he was intimate with the other ladies, and she was really not feeling that. So this week they did try to pair the three women with women who were in similar situations on their season. So Katie suggests that she does have the candid conversations with Grant and let Grant know how she's feeling. For their date, Grant and Latia did zip lining. Latia did say she wants to focus on her connection with Grant and not be in her head about the other women involved, but it does seem like she was in her head for quite a bit. During the date, Grant did say he was happy to see the more adventurous side of Latia. He also brought up how when he was at her hometowns, her family mentioned, she would be willing to move out of the state. I think she's from Utah. And so he asked her about that. She said yes. He mentioned how his dad is kind of by himself. And so she seemed eager to possibly move closer to Grant's dad just to really be with Grant. So it was kind of like, slow down, Turbo, like get your proposal first, but I guess it's good to check. I feel like anyone who goes on this show should be willing to relocate to where the main person is, because obviously, what's the point of having a long distance engagement and all the things? Like, I would want to know, like, okay, where are you from early on so I can know if I want to move there. She did let Grant know she gets anxiety about his other relationships and just possibly not being chosen in the end. So she wanted to protect her feelings. As for the fantasy suite offer, she let him know, like, you're a really great guy, but she's not. Well, she said sex is not on the table, which he seemed totally fine with. And she also let him know she doesn't want to hear, how the fantasy suite went with the other women. He respected her request. And ultimately, she still accepted the offer to be in the fantasy suites, but I'm sure they just used that time to talk and get to know each other better. He asked her about her timeline of when she would like to have kids and be a wife and, just grow a family. She said she's 31, so within the next, I believe she said 2 years. But it's ultimately up to them in having a strong foundation. I think she might be the best fit out of the ladies remaining, or she seems most ready to start a family, and that's something that he seems like he really wants. So I like Juliana too, but yeah, we'll see. And now it is time for the rose ceremony. For the fourth week, I think, fourth or maybe even fifth week in a row, Latia got the first rose. So Low key, I was kind of surprised that she got the first rose just because I've been noticing she's been getting the first rose. So I don't know if they're trying to throw us off at this point or if they're trying to see if we're paying attention to be like, duh, he was going to pick her in the end. We'll see. But yeah, this is for sure at least the fourth week in a row that she gets the first rose. And next, Juliana. Juliana got the second rose, which there was no surprise because, yeah, him and Zoe, they just, I feel like if he had a deeper connection with her, he would have bought her at least on a one on one date by now. So, unfortunately, Zoe went home, but I do think Zoe will be cool to see in paradise. Um, and yeah, the next morning after the rose ceremony, they did show a little more. Normally, they cut the episode off right there, but Grant said he was feeling conflicted. They showed him meeting with his family, his mom, his dad, and his sister. The dad did, remind him they're there to support him and help him with making his decision, but ultimately it's up to him. And so we will see more about how that conversation goes next week when the ladies meet Grant's family. And Grant did say he's never been as indecisive about which lady to choose, or just he's never been as indecisive in his life. So in this moment, though, it is about which lady to choose. So we will see how it goes. Stay tuned. Next week is the finale. I hope you enjoyed this recap, and I will catch y'all on the next one.